Hey, so today I wanted to talk about Coach Chris's video from Razor's kind of tour of their Korean boot camp and the speech that he gave. I think it's a great moment for talking about like coaching styles, coaching science, and how you guys can all become better coaches as well. So to start off with, I'm going to talk about like legitimately why this is a valid coaching philosophy, but also other variations, because there are a lot of ways to coach people and you have to find an art. It's both an art and a science to find these learning, teachable moments and to approach them appropriately and to really make an impact with your players. So like, for example, the difference between Chris in this case yelling at people versus some person just randomly saying like, oh, you have to be on time to an elevator, blah blah blah, is that we approach these things when there are essential confrontations that are required, and you take these moments as teachable moments, and it almost doesn't even matter what it is that kind of triggers the actual lecture, because the main point of what's going on is very different, and it's related to motivation and cohesion and performance and things like that. So I'm going to take us all the way through this from a sports psychological perspective, and we're going to start with, welcome to Mind Games TV episode, standing in the gym, forgetting my numbers. Okay, anyway, we're going to start with the posture. So notice the first thing that Chris does is have them stand up, step away from what they're leaning on, and try to face square. Okay, now this is basically trying to get people to own up to their mistakes and to take responsibility and ownership of them. So when you have a moment where you're going to correct somebody, they can either feel shame or guilt. All right, shame is like I am bad. Guilt is like I am a person who did something bad. Okay, you want them to feel guilt, change their behavior. You don't want them to feel ashamed, right? So a lot of coaching is trying to build people up so that they are men enough to kind of take corrections. And that is something that, if you notice, Chris has been doing this entire split with cinder blocks, with weight room, with building up a sense of identity that is independent of League of Legends, so that like when they get corrected in a certain way, they feel guilt and not shame, that they stand up and they can stand with their chest forward. Now, let's say your coaching style is not that you are even able to stand in front of 5 guys and give a speech, because this is something that's not easy unless you have a lot of good experience doing it. So let's say you're more of a one-on-one type person. This is possible to do one-on-one. What's important to do is to make people confront the issue. So you need to have eye contact with them. You need to actually have a confrontation. So you can be more maybe like consoling than him if you still force them to confront themselves and to force them to confront the behavior they're correcting. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the main content of this speech, how it starts out with Dunbar's number. So essentially, there's a saying in high performance that you are the 5 people that you hang around with most. So the idea is that you should look at those people that you spend time with, decide if these people are holding you back or if they are pushing you, causing you to grow and develop in a way that is progressive, instead of hold yourself back, give into your fears, not develop, stay immature in whatever venture that it is. And that you should kind of craft your environment, because psychologically this is kind of what happens. If you sit around a bunch of people who can't see past the end of their nose as far as like what they're going to do with their life and their ideals and their wishes, then you're going to conform to that kind of philosophy. So this social capital psychology is pretty well founded, but obviously you can create a bubble around yourself, a hyper reality bubble, and kind of push yourself through difficult things like that. So it's more like a principle of practice than it is something that's actually going to hold you back if you want to get out of it. But I still recommend people to kind of know about this principle and try to follow it, because you can really find some amazing peer groups if you look around and you're intentional about building them. The next thing I want to draw attention to is something you probably noticed as well, and that is when Chris said that it was the walk back that's important, that running is great and it is really growing for the brain, but they're already doing that. And if you do this socially cohesive activity and then you don't bond as a team afterwards and take advantage of that opportunity, if you split up and go into shops, or if you just kind of dick around, or even if one person gets to the end of the run and just leaves, that you're not using the activity to its fullest. You're just kind of hoping for the neurological, neuroprotective effect from the actual physical activity, and you're not bonding as a team. There's a reason that, you know, in sports teams, when somebody's late, everybody runs. And that is kind of a principle of band of brothers style kind of coaching, that you have these people who you actually want to sacrifice for, and that makes it easier to, when you're in a tough situation in a game, to do something that you wouldn't otherwise do for yourself. And this really comes into play a lot more in the training environment. Remember, like, you're only the culmination of all the effort that you put in at the end of the split, or the end of a season or whatever. It doesn't really matter, you know, how like super saiyan you can get in the actual game if you didn't put in the training to develop the skills you need to beat the other person. If they're slightly better than you, then you're still gonna always have a hard fight. Okay, so the next important thing is the schedule. Now, I don't want to draw attention to the fact that they have to keep a schedule, but rather what he said about there being a responsible person for getting your roommate out the door and on time. This is something that they do, for example, in Japan and Korea. There's a person assigned responsibility for the day in the classroom. He's the person who makes everybody stand up, makes everybody bow when the teachers come in, who reports what's going on to the teacher, gives them updates, stuff like that. And it's the same in sports teams. You know, there'll be a coach or a mentor, and there'll be a group of co-highs, you know, people underneath them, and they'll have one person who interacts with the other person and brings back their messages, make sure that they're responsible for the day. So it's just a really good tactic for teaching responsibility and making sure that people are following the rules. When you're not the enforcer, when it's your teammate looking out for you instead of you, the coach, enforcing stuff on them, there's a lot more stuff going on there mentally, as far as autonomy, leadership. Not all players versus coach. Instead, it's like players versus players, which can be very good to like uncover conflicts and also teach people how to manage these kind of social relationships. So yeah, that is a really important aspect of the schedule keeping that he kind of went over there that you should take note of. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is the team breakfast. So when you're a coach and you're trying to do team building like this, keep in mind what's happening behind the scenes, okay? Team building isn't team building when it's not team building. So don't expect that just because you make your team sit around together and eat breakfast together, that magical fairy dust is going to happen and then you're all going to love each other. So first of all, there's a lot of other team building stuff that goes into making the breakfast team building. There's probably stuff that Chris is doing behind the scenes there as well. And then on top of that, there's the yin and the yang aspect, all right? So the brain gets pretty tired of doing something over and over and over again. So when you're doing team building activities, you want to find something that's new and novel that makes the brain go, oh, and wake up and like treat it differently. If you eat breakfast as a team every single day for 17 years, it's going to be the thing like the old married couple where they don't even know that they're having breakfast with each other. So find something new to do as a team, build that into your team building, and when it stops being effective, you know, push it to the next level with like integrating activities into it. And when that stops being effective, hit the yin and the yang, you know, drop that activity, find something else. So this is something that they're pushing right now in CLG, it seems, and I think it's going to work fantastically because you know, food culture in esport is really weird. Everybody just kind of like eats their food when they want, and they sometimes get together for it and sometimes don't. But when you're in a training camp, for example, with a traditional sports team, and you other college athletes know what I'm talking about, when you travel to Hawaii or whatever for a week swimming camp or whatever, you know, everything is done in unison. Like whether you're going to the beach to relax, whether you're going to the canteen to get food, whatever it is all together. And so that is kind of like the part of the boot camp experience. And that's what's going to work here. And so yeah, when you're a coach and you're thinking about that, keep it in mind what's going on there. that you're gonna have to find your team building activities, and the thing that makes them team building activities is not that you're like doing it all together as a team. Okay, yeah, that is it, but that you make it a team building activity. Not that you're all together in the same place, but that you force people to build and unify through conflict, talk to people so they wouldn't talk to somebody they wouldn't normally talk to, talk about something they wouldn't normally talk about, that you make it special in a way, unique, up the energy in the experience. Okay, and now I want to talk about the fact that they're going to the gym together. So remember the thing I said earlier about being guilty instead of ashamed? So part of one of the things Chris is trying to do in his team, and I'm sorry to give away all his secrets here, these are things that you learn when you study coaching. So it's not like it's a big secret, it's just that he doesn't have any competitors in the scene yet who have 4 degrees in coaching. One of the things you try to do is you try to build up your athletes. You cannot have a group of boys with big dreams that will accomplish anything, okay? And in fact, most of the time you can't have a group of men that will accomplish their dreams either. What you really need to have are warriors, so people who have sense of identity, sense of strength, sense of self that transcends their failures and their successes. Because then they can have a dream and they know that they're going to fight for it, and they know that if something goes wrong, that they're going to get stronger. And one of the ways to do that with men and with boys is to give them physical strength, to give them competence and a feeling of success. When somebody's out on stage and you lose to them, and you look across the stage and you realize that you have 10 kilos and you could probably bench them, it's easier to recover from that defeat and to say like, well, if I can do this in the gym, and I know that I could probably throw him on my shoulders, maybe it's embarrassing that I'm losing him on stage, so I better do something in the training room as well so that I can beat him on the rift. So now we get to the part where he's mentioning the sympathy circle. And as a coach, I want you to kind of be clear on what it is that is your job. So when you're coaching your team, or when you are on a team and you have a coach, it's not really the coach's job to be a part of your sympathy circle. And good coaches won't allow themselves to get there. Yes, they will be part of your support network, people who care about how you feel. But the coach's job is to develop you. That is 99.9% of what real, true sport coaches do, all the way up. All the way up. It doesn't matter if you're coaching a professional team in the top league. Pretty much their goal is still to develop their players as people, as human beings, because it's the same thing as developing a person as an athlete, but even more so in electronic sport, because this field has a long ways to go, and people are going to be coming into it more and more, and the competition is going to get fierce, and it's really going to be people who grow and develop, who stick around and have really long, great careers. And so, part of what you do when you help people develop is stick up for them, because we're really bad at treating ourselves well as athletes and as people. We will get up late, we'll skip the gym, we'll slack around in training, we'll piss off in champion select, we'll ignore our smart coaches, we will get pissy at our teammates and not talk to them. We'll do all sorts of things that are stupid, and we know it, and we don't want to do it, but we do it anyway. And it's the coach's job to stick up for you, to yourself, to say, no, I'm not going to let you make a stupid decision right now. I'm not going to let you be bad to yourself in that way. I'm going to force you to treat yourself well. I'm going to force you to make the decisions that I know you would make if you were a perfect human being, but we're not. We can't always be perfect, and that's why we'll always have coaches, thank goodness. Well, job security there. But you can get close to your players, but you can't get too close to your players, because you always need the ability to have that essential confrontation, to confront them about what it is that they need to hear. And if you're the kind of person that can get really close to somebody and still do that, then kudos to you. You know, definitely pull it off. For some of you, that's going to mean like keeping a little bit of distance. But the advice that I have is to remember that you're kind of sacrificing it, like you're kind of doing it for them. So when you get really close to somebody and you have to have that essential confrontation, it's not because you're a jerk. It's not because you want to yell at them. It's not because, you know, these are the rules, you're going to make them follow them. You're doing it for their sake. And if you keep that kind of mindset, then you will have, well, number one, you'll have the correct communication. You won't do it for your own power. You won't do it for your own ego. You'll do it for them. Number two, you'll have the correct courage, because you know you want to help this person because you're close to them and you like them and you want to see them develop. And number three, I don't think I have a number three, but anyway, you know, you just always want to have a list of 3 things. Last part I wanted to talk about was just the fun part at the end when, you know, when Chris actually got to the point of his thing, which is that all the other stuff is important, but really the impact factor there is going to be during the post-op, scrim post-op, and the champion select, you know, when they're not supposed to be distracted. So I love that. I love this duo. I love this like head coach, offensive coordinator kind of thing they got going on. I think that it's fantastic for esport. I think that this is a really good model to follow kind of going forward. Although I think that it's going to be more like it is in traditional sport, where the offensive coordinator is kind of like, well, anyway, that's a totally different video. So yeah, that was cool. I liked how he was sticking up for that kind of role. And yeah, thanks for taking this little tour with me. Sorry about all the little breaks. You know how to get my sets in, and check my notes to make sure I knew what I was going to talk about next. So this video was, as always, sponsored by mindgames.gg. You can support me at mindgames.gg/patron, Patron, for just €5 a month. You can cancel and refund at any time. It's you get a membership on my site. Obviously, that's free anyway. And you get in the Facebook group where we talk about this kind of stuff. That's also free anyway. And you get my training course, which is, I'm actually remodeling it right now. It's going to be more awesome than ever when it comes back. That's also free anyway. So really, you just get your name on my credits page, and then credits in these videos when I start actually doing that. So thank you for that. The patrons I already have. You guys are fantastic. You 3. And you can check them out also at mindgames.gg/patronage. And what else? News coming up. Yeah, I am recording today a video series about performance enhancement. So optimization, we've hit mental training, physical training, nutrition is next, and supplementation. So I'm going to do a large video series about how to supplement yourself for cognitive enhancement. There's a bunch of stuff you can do, a bunch of foods that are great for that, a bunch of pills that are great for that, where they extract foods, and then of course some drugs that are good for that, but they got to be legal, both in the Olympic Committee and in the country that you're in. So we'll talk about that in the next series. Keep an eye out for it. It'll appear here on the YouTube channel, and I don't know if it'll be part of Mind Games TV or not, or if I'll just kind of release it separately, but subscribe and enjoy. Talk to you later.